This is not a talk about women's issues. Although I am a woman, I'm sure I have different issues to my friends, sisters, and girlfriends. I don't necessarily know what issues other women have. This is a talk about business, not women in business, women in law, women in finance, or any other industry. Just business, where being a man or a woman should be entirely unremarkable. Where the only thing that should matter is how good you are at your job, what you bring to the table, how you contribute to the bottom line. I am a corporate and commercial lawyer. I have the privilege of working with many business people every day, and my clients span a wonderful range of industries, some multinational, some small family-led, some starting up, and some long-established, each with their own unique ambitions and challenges. But they all have one thing in common. They all want to make money. That's not to say they don't want to do the right thing, of course. Gender equality is a moral imperative. It is right and it is fair. But it is much more than that. Gender equality has the potential to be a real financial opportunity. And making gender equality a business priority needs to start happening, because in fact, not doing so is costing us all much more than we can afford. Let's take a step back and look at the global economy. The McKinsey Global Institute, together with the World Bank, found that if men and women's participation in the workforce were equal, we could increase global GDP by $28 trillion by 2025. To put that into context, that's substantially more than the current GDP of the entire United States. And it makes sense. How could the world really flourish to its full potential with the contributions of only half of its population? The lack of equal participation in the workforce has a profound effect on the success of a business. A growing body of research by Catalyst and others is showing a strong correlation between gender equality and organizational success. The research is showing that improving gender equality is not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Organizations with greater diversity amongst their executive teams experience lower job turnover, higher retention rates, and they have an easier time recruiting high-quality individuals. The research even shows increased productivity, increased competitiveness, and profits increase of up to 20%. A recent study by Catalyst that looked at return on invested capital found that companies which have 3 or more female directors on their board actually experience an increased return on capital of 84% when compared to companies which have no female directors on their board. That's an increase of almost double. I know a lot of CEOs who'd be pretty happy with that result. Gender equality has sometimes been brought up at management discussions like, oh, so this gender equality stuff, how much is that going to cost us? But the truth is it's costing you already. If your organization is not making this a priority, then it's not that the business is still considering its options. Inaction is a choice, and it's an expensive one. So why do businesses which focus on gender equality experience this improved success? Well, firstly, no business can succeed without finding and developing the best talent. The research and the studies and the figures are still showing that women are considerably underrepresented in top management positions. We are in the minority across leadership roles in all industries. And surely it can't be the case that all the best talent happens to be male, right? A few years ago, Emma Watson interviewed some of the CEOs of the world's most successful companies about why they were choosing to make gender equality a priority for their business. The CEO of McKinsey said that it was his aim to find, attract, and develop the most outstanding individuals that he could. It's not that females are somehow better than men. It's just that he realized that if less than half of his board members were women, it must inevitably be the case that there were talented people being overlooked for promotion opportunities. Secondly, people who are comfortable in their workplace are able to bring their best selves to that organization. Workers are more likely to be motivated, innovative, creative when they feel that they can authentically be who they are in their day-to-day work. This can be as simple as a worker hearing a superior talking about how they spent the weekend with their children, signaling that it's okay for them to talk about their kids at work too. There are even instances of people who have kept having children a secret from their workplace for years. How can that worker really be bringing their best selves to the table? Another important advantage of having an inclusive workforce is that it can really improve your relationship with your stakeholders. Most businesses have a diverse range of customers and clients, and people increasingly want to see themselves represented in the companies that they work with and the service providers that are offering their service to them. Also, having gender equality in your business will improve and increase the diversity of perspectives that are brought to whatever industry you're working on. Despite the word equality, men and women, we're not the same. We do bring different experiences, different viewpoints, different ways of approaching something to a problem. In those interviews with Emma Watson that I spoke about earlier, she interviewed the CEO of PwC, asking why he was choosing to make gender equality a priority for their business. And he answered to say that he was finding strategically that more diverse teams were actually making better decisions. When he put together men, women, gender non-conforming individuals, people from different religions, races, sexualities, these teams were approaching problems in a way that was more creative, more innovative, and all round better. And another reason why gender equality needs to start being a priority in business is because ultimately the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes is fair and it is right. And employees care deeply about fairness, not just for themselves, but also for their colleagues. Experiencing a workplace where everybody has an equal opportunity at reward and progression means that workers are less likely to leave that workplace early, they're less likely to be lacking motivation, and they're more likely to actually recommend that workplace to others. On the flip side, experiencing injustice in the workplace can have a real grinding effect on employees' motivation. I mean, we can all see how heated debates in the office get about air conditioning or who stole someone's milk in the fridge. Imagine dealing with something as frustrating as gender equality. And people should be frustrated. People should be angry. I mean, I was preparing this speech and I was angry because I can't believe that we're still talking about this. But in addition to being angry, I am also excited because I believe in human beings' incessant longing for positive change and insatiable desire for progress. So now we know the positive change that can be brought to our economies and our workplaces by focusing on gender equality. But what about our personal lives? Well, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, found that actually gender inequality is imposing a tax on our happiness and our well-being. They found that men and women were more likely to report higher levels of well-being in gender-equal settings. And interestingly, these results did not vary by gender. So men were just as likely as women to report higher levels of happiness where they were being treated equally. In other words, gender equality is not just doing a disservice to women, it's also doing a disservice to men. Does anybody in the audience have children? Anybody got little boys? Well, did you know that men are more likely than women to have serious skin cancer? And the reasons for that start now in childhood. It's not that women have biologically stronger or healthier skin than men, but boys are socialized from an early age to spend more time outdoors, doing activities such as sports. Then they're more likely to take up jobs like in construction or gardening, again, experiencing sun exposure. They're less likely to wear sunscreen, something that's marketed as a cosmetic product, not something for a manly man. Then they're less likely to notice an abnormality in their skin because they're not looking at themselves, because they've been taught not to. And then they're less likely to seek medical attention for something if they're concerned about it. After all, they've been taught to be tough, not to express their fears, not to ask for help, which might be seen as weakness. And these stereotypes are affecting boys in other ways too. Boys are less likely at school to choose subjects such as performance dance for fear that it might be labelled as girly. I have a wonderful fiancé, and one of his favourite things is strawberry ice cream. He has told me about how he's been laughed at for choosing a pink flavour. I mean, the patriarchy is even controlling our ice cream choices, people. Another finding that might seem obvious to anyone who's ever had an argument about who's going to wash the dishes that night is that the more egalitarian our households are, the happier our relationships are. A study by Catalyst conducted on heterosexual relationships found that where couples were sharing equally the housework and the childcare, they experienced lower divorce rates, higher relationship satisfaction, and even lower mental and physical illness. In fact, they even reported having better sex lives. So there you go, all you had to do was your fair share of the housework, gents. Even children in more egalitarian households tend to do better at school and also experience lower levels of illness. So, gender equality makes us happier and healthier, makes our partners, makes our children happier and healthier. Happy and healthy employees can contribute better to the workplace, leading to businesses that are thriving and more productive. Gender equality is a win for everyone. So, how do we fully utilize all this potential, creating businesses that are more productive and families that are more content? Well, the changes start first with accepting that nobody needs to be the bad guy. Men are not the bad guys. Yes, I am a feminist, and no, I don't hate men. We need to involve men in the conversation for change. So let's stop creating groups of women to talk about women's issues. This reinforces the notion that we are somehow inherently separate to males and that we need to wait for the male leaders to decide when they're going to empower us. We are already inherently powerful beyond measure. We don't need a handout or a leg up. Instead of this, let's get together groups of diverse colleagues. Let's listen and learn from the perspective of somebody different to us. And then let's identify the prejudices and the unconscious biases that we all hold, and let's challenge those. After all, we are all responsible for being the change we want to see. So, what changes can we make? Well, first, we can start by doing small things like making sure women are not interrupted in group discussions and that they take up space at the table. Women are actually less likely to contribute to a group discussion or even to sit in the center of a room or at the front. Encourage us to take up that space. 2, celebrate and recognize women's accomplishments. Challenge comments, whether by the woman in question or by others, attributing success to external factors such as luck or help from others. Women have a harder time at recognizing their own achievements for fear of being labeled as arrogant or bossy or too much, and with good reason. A recent study conducted by Lean In, the organization founded by Sheryl Sandberg, found that likability and success are positively correlated for men, but negatively correlated for women. And the way that they found this result was by giving a group of students a story about a highly successful venture capitalist called Heidi. The stories given to all the students were identical, except that in half of those, the protagonist's name was changed from Heidi to Howard. Now, all the students confirmed that the protagonist was a very competent and successful person. The students who read Howard's story found that Howard was a great guy. But the students who read Heidi's story described her as selfish and said that overall they wouldn't want to work for her. We can shift that dynamic by making sure that women know that their values and accomplishments are recognized and respected. 3, notice gender. Men are less likely to actively notice gender because the default setting in many situations is set to male. Men are less likely to walk into a meeting, for example, and notice that they're the only person of their gender there. A couple of years ago, somebody kindly gifted us a couple of matching mugs. And one of them said boss, and one of them said lady boss. Nobody seemed to realize that actually the opposite of lady boss would be gentleman boss or man boss, not just boss. But inherent in that word was the assumption that a boss is by default male. Language is powerful. It sends important messages. Men and women experience the world differently. So, next time you're in your workplace, take a walk through it and try to see it from a woman's perspective. 4, mentor and encourage women by making sure that any mentorship opportunities don't happen on the golf course or in drinks receptions where women tend to be less present. And lastly, 5, to the men in the boardrooms, to the male colleagues, to the male partners of female workers, talk to us. The struggle to balance work and family life is a challenge that we are all experiencing. It is not exclusive to working mums. And increasingly, men are prioritizing being a good parent on par with success in their careers. Women increasingly are not willing to sacrifice their career for that of their partners. Increasingly, we are sharing the same challenges. So instead of arguing about who's got it worse, let's get together and let's tackle these challenges together. None of these changes cost a single penny. So every organization, your business, your workplace, no matter how small, how stretched, how under-resourced, can afford to make gender equality a priority. What's not to like about happier workers who are more motivated and making you more money? Your competitors are doing it. Can you afford to be left behind? Thank you.